The sun was slowly sinking lower. Its rays illuminated only the slopes of the hills, forming bizarre bright spots on them. Taiga was preparing for the nightlife. The daytime sounds gradually subsided. Animals and birds, leading an active life during the day, were preparing for rest. The night inhabitants, on the contrary, woke up and asked the daytime ones what interesting things had happened that day. Me and a worker, a former hunter with my dog, having completed the route, headed to the camp. The night was rapidly coming into its own. The last rays of the sun had already disappeared, and the twilight was confidently enveloping in a velvet blanket of darkness. The moon rose in the sky, and the stars poured out in a scattering. She illuminated everything with her mysterious light, bringing magic and changing the surrounding nature. On a night like this, it feels like you've fallen into a fairy tale. The worker walked in front, and I followed him. After walking about 500 meters, it seemed to my peripheral vision that someone was walking parallel. A meter away from us, now showing up, then hiding behind bushes and trees. Without stopping, she turned her head in that direction to make sure, and immediately tripped and fell. The hunter stopped and turned around. When I tried to get up, I felt pain in my leg. Groaning involuntarily, she took off her backpack and the device and began to feel the sore spot. I calmed down that there was no open fracture. The worker came up to me. When I found out that there was something wrong with my leg, I found a suitable stick so that I could lean on it when walking. Taking my backpack and device from me, despite my objections, he helped me get up, and we continued on our way. He was walking, loaded, 2 backpacks, a device, a rifle and an axe. I was hobbling light from behind, leaning on an improvised crutch. The dog ran ahead of us, occasionally running up to us. The pain increased with each step. After walking about 300 meters, she stopped and sat down on the ground. Pulling up her pant leg, she asked me to shine a light on her leg. She was already noticeably swollen, in the place where there was severe pain. The hunter took iodine and a bandage from his backpack. After applying the mesh, she bandaged it. "Can you walk?" "What is it?" he asked. "And where am I gonna go?" "You're as loaded as a donkey. Just let's move, even slower," I replied. With great difficulty, clenching my teeth so as not to moan, with his help and leaning on a stick, I got up and we walked. He was in front, looking back at me every now and then. At first, it was tolerable. But the longer they walked, the pain became unbearable with each step. I walked with my teeth clenched. It was obvious from the pain. His forehead was covered with perspiration. I just wanted to say that a short rest was necessary when I felt as if someone was supporting me, slightly lifting me off the ground so that I did not step with all my weight on my sore leg. It's a strange feeling. I didn't feel like I was being supported by a human being. Looking to the left, she was walking with her head down, looking only at her feet. She saw someone next to her. Surprisingly, our dog reacted calmly to him. At that time, we just came out into an open area illuminated by moonlight. It was a translucent entity, similar in outline to a human, taller than me by about a head or a little more. He had an almost overgrown, either wool or hair, face with a beard and bushy eyebrows. His eyes shone a greenish-blue color from under them. He is dressed in loose trousers, like trousers, and either a kaftan or a loose-fitting, long-sleeved robe. He held me by the waist with both hands, but I didn't feel his touch, as if from human hands. It just made it easier for me to walk. It didn't hurt so much. There was no aggression or malice coming from him. When I looked up at his face, he smiled and nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. At this time, the hunter stopped and turned around to make sure once again that I was following him. Literally for a split second, his eyes widened, but immediately returned to normal and, turning away, continued walking. Finally, we approached the camp, where a bonfire was burning and around which our people, who had also returned from the roots, were sitting. Before reaching a little, I felt that I was being gently released. That is, I firmly put my feet on the ground. The pain in my leg increased dramatically. Turning my head, I saw that this creature was a meter away from me. "Thank you very much," I said, opening my teeth with difficulty. The hunter stopped and turned to us. Bowing low to him, said, "Thank you, Master of the Taiga, for your help." The entity smiled at us, retreated behind the trees, and seemed to disappear, as if it had never existed. Approaching the campfire, they joined those sitting. After dinner, over a cup of tea, they told about what had happened, about unexpected help. If hadn't been for the owner of the taiga, who helped me walk, I don't know why. Maybe he just regretted it. Most likely, the hunter would have had to leave me alone and go for help. Two or 3 years ago, I had a chance to drive along a country road late at night. I was returning home. I was late. I'm driving. There are no cars. In general, I'm alone, maybe 5 kilometers to the highway. I see a village in a lowland in the fog and a bus stop standing in the way. And when I was already level with the bus stop, I clearly saw how I literally bumped into a girl. A long-haired blonde, as if she had drawn herself out of the ground. Naturally, like all decent women, I closed my eyes. Well, I slowed down. I was afraid that I had touched her because she was kind of on the side. There was no noticeable impact, no sounds, but I stopped anyway, got out of the car and went to look. But there was no one, not from behind, not from the front, not from the side, nowhere. To say that I thought and imagined then is to say nothing. Starting from the setup and mysticism and ending with the madness of my own brain, which nevertheless turned on belatedly. But I ran behind the wheel, blocked the doors, and left with cold hands and teeth beating off high vibrations. Literally driving out of the foggy valley, cars immediately got in the way, and somehow it became calmer. After a while, my friend tells almost a similar story. She also returned by car late at night. The children, too, were sleeping in the back, and she saw a bright girl on the highway, but almost head-on as she passed through the car. There was no impact. She stopped too, but did not get out, but looked into the rear and side mirrors and saw an elderly woman, an old woman, who stood and looked after her. Well, she left in a terrible fright too.